I really tried to make it like almost like a comic book. You could just pick it up on any page, and
Yeah,
in the headline and the images sort of tell you the paraphrase of what the page is about.
yeah, it's fantastic. You should be very proud of this, and we need to be selling it and getting it out there.
Yeah, and as you know, it's actually just collating and editing all of those images. It was took a crazy amount of time,
Oh yeah,
as it does, you know.
yeah, I can believe that. Yeah,
And you go back and just change it. And, oh, that's not quite the one I want, and whatever.
yeah, yeah.
And then you had to change the dots per inch, the pixel density of the images to suit the printer and all this sort of stuff. It's
My
become
God, I mean, yeah, I know. Don't. My eyes are slightly glazed as you talk about that. So
and instantly so, oh my God, yeah, no.
yeah, yeah.
Um, yeah. So
But it's a really, really, really good resource. I really, really like it.
well, and then I crunched it down so that there's a version on the website which is quite, a PDF which is quite usable as well. But obviously, it's nothing like having a book in your hand.
Yeah, exactly.
Yeah,
Exactly.
yeah.
Have they managed to get some data money?
I've given some to these boys in Kenya who haven't appeared. Typical. So we'll see if they come.
Do you know someone called Bernard something or the other?
Otieno.
Yes, yes,
The name rings a bell.
yeah.
It
I
there's
think,
some people's names occur a lot, and I think that they're associated with a particular district, and it gets a little bit confusing sometimes. You forget who you're because there's a similarity, whatever.
yeah.
It's like talking to a Steve Jones. It's like, are you? Which Steve Jones are you?
I mean, I have three Steve Jones in my phone. Come on.
Yeah. Greetings, Andre.
Yeah, hi everyone.
How are you? How are you? I hope you're well.
Hi, hi,
Good.
Andre.
Hi,
How are you?
I'm good.
Good,
Good.
good, good to
Yeah,
see you.
Mm.
yeah, thank
We,
you.
Where's your able lieutenant?
My friend is somewhere. There is some family problem.
Oh, I'm
So
sorry to
he's,
hear
okay.
that.
yeah,
Is that Hassan? Is that Hassan?
Hassan.
yeah, Hassan.
Hassan.
Yeah.
Hassan.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Okay. Okay, everyone. Well, I'm assuming you can see my screen.
Sadimet, yes.
Yes. Okay. And I thought that this week we would talk about design, and I want you, meaning all of you, to think about how you might want to apply permaculture in your own context. So we're going to look at a design tool. Some of you might have seen this before, but I think it's a really good thing to go through. And as we go through it, you might want to jump in and share if you have any thoughts relating to your own aspirations. Andre, I'm looking at you a little bit for this because I know you've been thinking about Kakuma and
Yes.
and you know I was trying to permaculture. When we look at our principle 6, it's about waste. It's about eliminating waste. It's about understanding that there are opportunities in the waste stream, things that are not being utilized by other people or other systems. That includes people. And my impression of refugee settlements is that there's a lot of people there who are not engaged in activities, or they are a bit but could be more. And the greatest resource potentially that you have in your situation is the human resource. And if we can inspire those people to come together, to feel a common cause, a common vision, and a common task, then you have something there that is very powerful indeed. Of course, it's easy to say, but we have to have a strategy to be able to access that. So that's a bit about what we're going to talk about today. Not specifically for you, but we'll try and make it really relevant for you, and the same for everybody else who is listening to this, to think about relating this to your own situation or situation that you wish to address. Okay, so here's a little recap. So permaculture is an approach to design. It's a way of thinking. It's a way of problem solving. Permaculture really is the approach. It's not the techniques. Obviously, we have wonderful techniques, swales and raised beds and seed beds and forest gardens and hugelcultures and living fences. Those are all applications of permaculture thinking. What we're interested in is the design process, the methodology of how we decide even that we might need a raised bed or a swale or anything else. So I just thought I'd start with that. Oh, and something else which I thought I would share is, and it was just a short that I saw on probably Twitter or something, on a social media site, and it was a Canadian woman had been asked a question, I think from an young African student, about what they felt about permaculture and permaculture people and the permaculture community. And this is someone speaking from North America, and she said, be slightly wary, because the word permaculture anyone can use. Just say it. And that doesn't necessarily mean that that person who's talking about permaculture is really on the same page as you. And okay, hello, John. I'm going to ask you to mute your microphone, unless you are actually going to speak, and you can put your hand up. Thank you. There's lots of, she said, to use her words, she said, there's lots of grifters and chancers and using the word permaculture because it sounds clever and sophisticated. But really, and to be a little bit wary, but the importance is, it's the ethics. It's what we talked about last week and before, is permaculture. These ideas sit on the ethics. We're not doing this just for me, or we're not just doing this for you. We're doing this for fair share, people care, earth care. You know, we're meeting our own needs. We're helping our community meet their needs, and we're building a positive relationship to the natural world. That's what we're doing. And when we see people using permaculture, perhaps for their own self-importance or their own self-aggrandizement, we have to be suspicious. So a word of warning, there we go. Not everybody using this word is a paragon of virtue. And it's actions that speak, not words. It's actions that speak, not words. Okay. So how do we approach design? Well, one way is to use this model. And I was introduced to this a long time ago, I think on my permaculture course that I studied, 1995, and it keeps coming back up. And that's because it's a good methodical way of thinking. And I'm going to break it down for you today because it seems a little bit complicated, but it's not. So we have an acronym. Acronym is a made-up word to help us remember something. And that acronym is SADIMET. SADIMET. And SADIMAT is an acronym for a simple land-based permaculture design model. It steers the designer through a step-by-step process, ensuring consideration of a wide variety of factors. Remember, we're doing holistic thinking, holistic planning. We're trying to design a system, not a linear process, but a complex system. So advantages of this structure is that it can assist in group work and presents a clear step-by-step methodology. Finally to note is the model is circular. It feeds back on itself. And remember, especially when we talk about our permaculture principle 4, we talk about how systems run on feedback. That's the knowledge, the experience, information that comes out from completing each cycle of the system tells us something more about how well it's working, how we might improve it. So I'm going to take you through this complicated spider diagram that we have here on the left, and I'm going to break it down. Please feel welcome to chip in at any point. If you have a question, raise your hand. Permaculture begins with observation. If we're going to do a design, we're going to start off by doing, let's say, a series of surveys. Survey meaning active observation. And we're going to survey 4 things when we start our design process. The client, the site. We're going to ask about observed experiences. And we're going to think about leaks. Leaks as in holes where things flow out, not the vegetable. So firstly, every permaculture design has a client or a client group. Who are we doing this for? Are we doing it for you or me? Is it for you, your family, your community? So I'm going to use you as an example, Andre. Is your client group you, your local permaculture group, or is it the whole of Kakuma? Think about that. Who is it that the design is aimed at, and who's going to be the beneficiary? And second area we're going to think about is the site itself, the place where we're going to do our design. And yeah, so let's get into this. So the first thing we're going to do is we're going to survey our client. Who is the client? Let's be specific. And even if you yourself are the client, you're going to work with yourself, and you kind of almost imagine if you've got 2 heads and you're having a conversation with yourself. And the one head is the designer, and that's you in your design mode. And the other head is the client, is the person that the design is for. So the first set of questions that we want to ask, and the first things that we address with our design process, is we write down the functions of the design. And we get these by asking the client. What are the functions of this design? In other words, why are we doing it? What are we hoping to achieve? What outcomes do we require? What are our long-term goals? Can we define these? Now, the more that you discuss these ideas with your client group, the more the client group will feel an empathy and an involvement in the design. So you might sit there all by yourself, Andre, and have some fantastic ideas, and then take them out into a community, and then people say, yeah, but we don't want that, we don't need that, or you can't impose something on people. You have to work with them. So let's think about, if we were to start a community garden in Kakuma, and Andre and Hassan was to do that, what are the functions of this garden? What are the outcomes that you're looking for? Okay, you want to feed people, but what else? Maybe we want the garden to look very good, or to be very useful for learning, for demonstrating ideas in a way in which other people might be inspired, or the way in which other people might want to join in. So think about this, the function of your garden. Is it just for you? Is it just for you and your family or your members? Or is it something that's actually going to be a statement that the wider Kakuma community might benefit from? So, and write it down. Don't just leave it as a vague thing. Try and be specific. And each step of the design process, you're going to go back to right to this beginning and go, is my design ideas, do they fulfill the stated functions that I said at the beginning? Okay, your client or your client group will have their own ideas about things. They might have differing priorities. They might express values and ethics in a particular way. You need to pay attention to those, and whatever design ideas that we start to build and generate, it needs to speak also to the values, ethics, and priorities of the client group. Okay, so if you're in India and you're working with a community that doesn't eat beef, then don't eat cows. That's an ethic that you have to design for. Okay, or a Muslim community or any community that might have an ethic or a taboo. You need to understand that, and the design needs to speak to that. The third area that you need to think about in your initial survey, and you ask your client group is, hey client group, what's the budget? How much money do you have? And if you don't have money, do we have other resources? Because if the client says, look, I want a really fantastic functioning garden that's a global inspiration and will train hundreds of people, but we have no money, okay, that's going to limit what you as the designer can achieve. You're going to have to be more creative. If you don't have much budget, you're going to have to build your own soil through composting, propagate your own plants, grow the materials that you need. It's going to take longer, but it's going to be a fuller process. What other resources are there lying around? And that might include people also. So if we can, if people are prepared to give some time or some energy to the project, then that is part, you need to know that at the survey, right at the beginning. Constraints. The fourth one is around limitations. Do we have time? Do we have, I don't know what other things, maybe the site's very windy, maybe we get water catchment is a really important problem or a challenge. Safety, security, I don't know, what other, your clients will know. One way you could say this is, you could approach this, you can ask the question, why haven't you achieved this already? What are the constraints that have stopped you from achieving this? Well, we don't have the knowledge. We didn't know how to organize ourselves. Okay, now you're starting to understand the problems that you're addressing. So your design to be a good design needs to speak to, operate within, and understand the constraints of the system that you're working in. We can achieve all of these things, but maybe say fail on the budget. So I've got the best design idea ever, but until someone gives me $100,000, I can't do anything. So that's not a good design. You need a design process that can start right away. And if you don't have the resources, in starting off, that might draw attention and support towards yourself. So this is very much about thinking creatively. So, Sadimet, the S of Sadimet, to help you remember, stands for survey. We're going to survey our client, the site, observed experiences and leaks. So there's the client. The site. If we're building a garden, or we're building a community garden, or we're designing something, where is it going to be? It's going to be in an actual place. So in the actual place, can we define the borders and boundaries? Are we actually certain of the place that we're designing? We need to be clear about this, and it's a very good fundamental place to start off with. We know that in any human-based system, we're going to need water. We need water, plants need water, animals need water. Without water, we can't do anything. Water is a limiting factor. And to think about water, we'll go more deeply into this, but if you're in a very arid environment, then for sure a lot of your design is going to be around catching water and minimizing evaporation. If we're in an environment that occasionally has very heavy downpours of rain, we need to factor that into our plan as well, because we need to think about where that surplus is going to go. We know too much water is very destructive, and not enough water prevents anything from happening. So as we first look at a site, we're going to be clear on where the boundaries are, the borders, and we're going to immediately start asking ourselves questions about water. Where does it come from? Where does it go to? How much is available? Begin to formulate those kind of questions. We need to look at access. How are you going to get onto the land, and how are you going to leave it? Does it cross other people's land to get there, or are there other barriers? Is it okay for walking? How about for wheelbarrows or animals or even vehicles? If you had to have some materials delivered in a truck, is access an issue? You just need to know the answers, because then you can plan appropriately. These are the things that you're asking yourself when you are looking at the site. What do we know about the community that either lives on the site or around it? Are they an asset? Are they someone we can work with? Might they be difficult? Might they steal from us? Or, is there anything we need to know? And we might need to have a plan within our design of how to build a relationship with that community so that they become a positive and not a negative. Remember, this is the survey. All we're doing is gathering information and asking ourselves fundamental questions. Okay, as we walk around the site, do we see any assets? Do we see piles of wood, piles of sand, piles of stones, an interesting slope, or anything that might ultimately be a resource? And obviously, and as much as we're looking at that, we're asking ourselves the question about vegetation. What plants are growing there already? Are they useful to us? Are they in the way? What do they tell us about the quality of the site? Can they tell us something about the soil or something like that? Hello? Was that a question? No? I'll carry on. Fire. Is there a risk of fire, of bushfire, of that vegetation? Is it going to burn? What surrounds us outside? This might need to be a consideration within it. Also, are there other problems? Can we see any other problems with the site? As we observe the site, we can ask ourselves questions about both the climate and the microclimate. So the climate as a whole, but maybe there's variation within the site. Maybe some of it's shaded by trees or by buildings or different topography and slopes. What observations can we make about the soil? Maybe we dig a hole in the soil, dig a pit, and have a look at the soil profile. Ask ourselves if we think it's in good condition, or if it's eroded, or if there's quality. And then we do a kind of a sector analysis, part of it, which is understanding the sun, the wind, the water, pathways, wild animals, what other sort of wild or untamed energies might affect or shape the landscape. So this is our survey, and this is the main part of the survey. Really, is we need to understand the client and the functions of the design, and then we need to really interrogate the site and so that we can be clear in our minds about what may or may not be possible, or problems or challenges that we may need to address with our design. Because remember, permaculture designs are multifunctional. We can have design fire breaks that also help be part of our fuel system, or water treatment systems, or there's ways to do this. Survey. The third part of the survey is observed experiences. That's what do we know about the site from other people? Could we speak to the neighbors? Hey, you've lived here longer than me. What do you know about this site? Have you seen it flooded? Have you seen it? No, I don't know. What observed experiences do you have? Do you know about the history? Who used to be here? What happened on this land before we came? There might be industrial pollution. The soil might be poisoned. They might have burnt plastic there. We don't know. We want to find out. And a good way of knowing what's happened in the past, ask the neighbors, ask the old people, access local knowledge, ask the children. Perhaps other people have done designs. Let's say if you're at Kakuma, maybe the refugee agency came up with designs for the site. Maybe there's been previous groups or projects working there. All of this is useful information to empower you to create the best permaculture design that you possibly can. And that's what that's why we're doing our survey. And the final part of the survey is this idea of leaks. And by that I mean like a leak in a bucket. If we've got a bucket of water and there's water leaking out, then we need to fix it. So if when we look at a land and we see evidence of soil erosion and soil loss because perhaps of bad management, our design needs to address that with a degree of urgency. Soil is so important. Same with water. If we're seeing water wasted, what we will have to factor that in into our design to reduce or eliminate that as a problem. Time. So much time is lost. The example they gave us on my permaculture course many years ago was a gate that doesn't quite close. So every time you go through the gate, you have to stop, put down what you're carrying, and open the latch by hand. It only takes a few seconds, but you pass through that gate many times a day. So that becomes a point of friction. You waste actually quite a lot of time every time you go through that gate. So fixing it becomes a priority. That wasted time, fiddling with the latch on the gate, is a leak. Now, it's a simple example, and there'll be many other examples of that. But think about how we can eliminate the wasting of really, really valuable things: soil, water, time, of course, money, knowledge, wasted labor, wasted nutrients. So we know that we are interested in permaculture. Principle 2: catch and store energy. We don't want to let those nutrients go. We're going to capture them through composting, bring them into the soil. We're going to make our water slow down and soak into the soil. We're going to make sure we're going to use landscaping techniques to make sure we don't lose soil. And we're going to build strategies. Think about knowledge and labor. If someone comes and works with you for a while, they learn, they have experience, and then they might leave. Is there a way in which you, when they leave, you can capture some of their knowledge? So, or perhaps they could help, you could build a strategy for them to do some teaching or some sharing before they leave. Labor, the people that you work with, think about strategies to retain them, invest in them, make people feel valued so they want to keep coming back. And one way to do that is through training and support. Make people feel valued and recognize their contribution to the project. Okay, so there's our first part. Our survey is we're going to inform ourselves as much as we can so that we may build a really good design. So now we've got a whole load of information. Let's write that down. We're going to call it base map 1. We can call it anything we like. It doesn't really matter. But it's our survey map or our survey picture or list. And we can write down, maybe draw a little sketch of the land, note some of the vegetation on it. Oh, I think that's a baobab tree. I'm not quite sure. I can ask. So we test our assumptions. We write down on our paper or make a model or scratch it in the ground. There's many ways to do this. But we're going to say, look, this is the boundary of the land. This is the pathway. And remember, this is the survey. You're not designing. You're just recording what is there. And as with your client, you're going to test the assumptions that you've made. There's no, the boundary isn't there, and they can correct you. So this is about collaboratively working together, working as a group. I'm just going to check the messages, unless we've got a couple of messages. Okay, yeah. Hi, Gerald. Good to see you there. So on we go. So we've our first phase of being a designer is to do no designing at all, but just observe what we see and write it down and check that with the client. That's what you're doing. That's your first level of work. So think about that. Andre and everybody else who sort of got a plan and think about that process. Okay, so then Sadimet, S-A-D-A. So S, survey. There were 4 aspects to the survey, so quite a lot. Analysis. Analysis is like another word for thinking outside the box. And again, so it's Sadimet, S-A-D. So you survey analysis, and only after the analysis do you then start designing. So this is the bit, the analysis is where we do our thinking. It's where we do the kind of hard sums, if you like. So why are we doing this? What are the functions of our design? Now we started off right at the beginning asking the client those functions. So now within our analysis, we're going to enlarge on those. These are just examples. But if we're designing a community garden, we're very interested in yields. We want produce. We want stuff that we're going to eat, and we want stuff that we can sell so that we can buy more seeds and things like that. So I don't know what plants or where they're going to go, but we know that one of the functions of our garden is to produce yields for ourselves and to sell. And we also know that we're very interested in soil building, soil retention, soil biology, all of these different things. We need to learn about it. And so we know that within whatever our design is, we're going to need a set of strategies to help with soil building and soil retention. We talked about water. What about wildlife? What about your garden as a habitat? How might animals, insects, birds pass through your landscape? Thoroughfares. You could have perches for birds. I remember going to Homer Bay, to Permo Africa Centre, where Paul Agola is, and he had many weaver birds in the trees above his garden, and all of their droppings are helping feed the system. So think about wildlife. How can we invite them in, create habitat? How might the wildlife pass through the garden? Maybe there's some animals we don't want in the garden. We don't want people's goats and cows, but maybe we do want some birds, or maybe a lizard, or things that are going to help with pest control, insect population regulation. What species are there? How would they get to your garden? How would they leave it? Are there places for them to be when they're in that garden? How important is privacy for you? You can design in a garden where there's a really private place for people to sit, maybe to have meetings or to talk or to teach. Maybe we need shelter from the sun or the wind. These are functions of your design. Okay, do we need fuel for heating? What else do we need? Produce, we've said food. The garden might be about demonstration and training. We're also going to teach in there. Notice how these things are not mutually exclusive. We can grow yields and cash crops, and we can do demonstration and training in the same place, in the same space. Are we planning any structures and buildings? And if so, what are the functions of those buildings? A tool store, a classroom, a place to put the baby, I don't know, a place to keep a goat. Be specific. Fertility, that might be another consideration that we want to build the fertility, and we might want to learn about green manures, or if we have chickens, we might use the chicken manure. These are examples. These are the functions of our design. But then the next thing we want to do is then think about systems and elements that we're going to need to fulfill that function. So I've just done one. I thought about bees. Imagine in our analysis, one of the things that was come up, we've spoken to our clients, and they've talked to us about that they're very interested in keeping bees. So there's going to be part of your design where you just think about that. What do bees need? And can we make a list of those things as like a checklist to make sure that we include them in our design when we do it? So bees need pollen, they need plants, don't they, all year round? So we need pollinating plants and tree crops, food for the bees. They need hives, they need somewhere to stay and reproduce. We might need some special clothing for working with the bees. So therefore, and things like a smoker for gathering honey, or processing tools. We might need a shed to keep those in. I put a tree nursery because I was imagining propagating the plants that the bees are going to enjoy. Bees also will need some water. We need to collect water for them. And so on and so forth. This is not a definitive list, but this is just thinking about if one of the functions of our garden was to include bees and to be bee friendly, then we would then brainstorm out a list of everything that we would need to support that function. We support key functions with multiple elements. So each one of these things is an element that together supports the function of beekeeping. And beekeeping supports the bigger function of having a healthy garden. So you can see how we can think in a very methodical way. So now, again, Andre, should you be working with your group and you've identified in your analysis that bees are going to be very important, and then we think about all the things we need to help us look after bees, to partner with bees, then everybody understands why you're saying that. We understand we're keeping bees because, well, we get honey, but also they help with pollination. They help the garden be healthy, and also they keep away maybe people who are scared of bees. Think about this in a creative way. So part of our analysis is we're going to do two things to the analysis section. Is we really think carefully about the functions of the design, and then we literally list out elements which are going to help fulfill those functions. We can write all those things down in a list, in a map, in a flow chart, in a diagram, on a phone, scratched into the earth, written on a wall. There's no official way to do this. All we're trying to do is to facilitate communication. And you can say, as the designer, well, hello client group, you talked a lot about how important bees were, so these are my assumptions for supporting bees. And they can say, yeah, they can agree, they can disagree, they can add to your list. This is how we learn, we discuss. Okay? So now, and only now, do we now think about the design itself. We've done our survey, we've done our analysis, so now we're going to do a design. And we've got a list now of separate things, of elements that we want to put in our design, like bee crops, like a tool shed, like bee clothing. Can we fit those elements together in a way in which it becomes a system? So, for example, our tool shed where we keep our bee smoker and our bee clothes could also help with water catchment. It might add some shade. It might give us a trellis for growing up some plants. Can we link each separate element together so it becomes a system, and that system itself supports the key functions? This is permaculture. And you can start simple and keep adding. What you're trying to do is to integrate elements together to create systems, and integrate the functions together to create beneficial relationships. In doing design, we might do input-output analysis. We might say, if we want to keep some chickens, what are the needs of a chicken? It needs food, it needs water, it needs grit, it needs dust, it needs other chickens. It needs somewhere to perch, somewhere to sleep. It needs protecting from predators. It's protecting from being stolen. These are all inputs for a successful chicken. What are its outputs? Well, it gives you eggs, it gives you more chickens, gives you manure. Chickens make a lot of noise, or they can do. That's an output. They can be quite friendly and sociable. That could be an output for you. Feathers, dust, mites. Chickens like to groom and take care of each other. Our design needs to understand all of the behaviors and inputs and outputs of each element. Otherwise, it becomes a problem. We're thinking about the plants we're going to grow. We can begin to think a bit more about what species. We can think about the cropping pattern. Which one comes first and how much of one compared to another. But also, we talk about succession in permaculture, haven't we? That you need to build your soil first. There's no point planting seeds when the soil isn't prepared. And maybe if your soil's very poor.
The journey is not success. No. The CDO is not there. That she went to Sohoti, time order struggle,
Okay, Godfrey, I muted you. Sorry, I think we could hear your room. Our design might need to consider legal considerations. Are there some legal aspects within this? And then the final element of the design is placement, where we actually put things. And I've noticed I've made a reference here to zones and sectors, which perhaps we might talk about another time. So here we go. Sadimet. We've surveyed the client, the site. We've asked about observations, and we've tried to identify leaks. And we understand that those leaks represent an important opportunity for us. We're going to improve the whole system by fixing them. We're going to do analysis. As our surveys, we're going to do analysis to think about the functions of the design, and then we're going to think of, when we thought about the functions, we're going to think about the elements that support those functions, and then, and only then, after we've tested those ideas, do we begin to think about the relationships between those elements. How might we fit them together, and where might we put them? Now, you might want to come up with some kind of map system where you, so we like to say, make your mistakes on paper. If you decide you're going to dig a pond, then make sure you're digging it in the right place, because that's an awful, it's a big mistake. You can't move the pond. If you suddenly realize, oh, I've dug the pond, but actually that's the access, or that's where the road needs to go. Make your mistakes on paper. Draw a map and place the main elements on it and discuss it. This is something that you can all push and pull and discuss. Andre?
Yes.
Please, you're welcome.
Sorry for interrupting you, brother.
It's okay.
And I would like
Iya dan itu jalan otom. Ibe.
Who are we hearing now? Is that you, Andre?
we shall meet name.
I'm going to carry on because I can't hear you. No, someone else is still on. There we go. Yeah, welcome questions. I just, I couldn't hear you. Okay. Survey analysis design. We're getting there. So we've got a design, but the next question would be implementation. We're not going to do our design all at once. We're going to do it in sequence. So what are we going to do first? Here are some thoughts, some hints. Start from your back door. That really means start from where you are. Start small and build on success. Experience and learn from mistakes. So here's the thing. There's a relationship between size and speed and whether something is a mistake or not. So I think that when we're operating at a small scale, if something isn't right, we can correct it. If we're operating at a big scale and we make a mistake, that can often be a disaster. So even if we want to do something that's very big and very ambitious, and Andre, I know you want to, create huge change within Kakuma, a huge settlement, 300,000 people. You're going to start small. You're going to build on your successes. You're going to experience and learn from mistakes, and grow out like that in a slow and steady way. Begin to locate the components of your design. You know what you need now because you've made a list. So where are those things going to come from? As we look at the components, we're also thinking about how do we build relationships between them. How long have we got? What's our time plan? How will this grow? Let's, even if we can't see very far into the future, let's plan out the first phase or two, and let's say from starting small, let's begin, see what we learn. Hopefully, we can draw in interest, and it can grow. So another tip here is it says start from your back door. It also says start from fertile areas and expand. Make it easy for yourself. Build on success. So we look at some of the best areas, the closest areas, the easiest areas to work with, and we're going to start there. And then just, it says follow natural patterns. Keep applying your principles and design to reduce limiting factors. So why isn't the garden there already? Why hasn't it been successful? What are the limiting factors that stop that from happening? Oh, everything got eaten by goats. Okay, well, your design needs a fence, a living fence perhaps, or a relationship with the people who own the goats to control their movements. What are the limiting factors? Your design should address that, and you maybe can't get rid of them, but you can reduce them, you can control them, you can work towards them. So look, we've had our survey, analysis, design, implementation and maintenance. There's only one more, which is evaluation and tweaking. Tweaking means make small changes. We're still in implementation and maintenance, so we're thinking about the sources of our resources. Where are they coming from? Are they seasonal? How are we affected by the seasons? If we've got an extensive rainy period, that's going to affect our planning. What's the sequence of events? Again, we're not going to build our garden all at once or actuate our design all at once. Generally, you build the path first. You start with the access. We need to think about sources of resources, the seasons, the sequence. We need to think about community interaction. We need help. We need to engage with the community so that they can understand and learn and feel part of the process of this design. And as we implement the design, there will also be outputs, there might be waste, there might be other materials that we need to think about, and there will be costs. So we think, and once we start something, as soon as we start to build something, we need a plan for also how we're going to maintain it. So once we planted a tree, someone's got to water it, or keep the goats away from it, or care for it. So you need a good design will have anticipated not just the implementation, but the maintenance of each element once it's been placed in the design. So this sequence of events is very, very important. That's very strategic, and it's also very strategic if we can mobilize and energize and interest the community around, so that they themselves become part of the implementation and maintenance of the design. Okay, and then this final section, evaluation and tweaking. So we need to keep records of what we're doing. Take photos, reports, documentation. It's so easy now with camera phones and so forth to record things. But also, there's three questions, I think, which I always have got in my mind when I'm evaluating a project or any aspect of a project is, firstly, let's take a positive appraisal. Let's look at something in a positive way, rather than say, "Ah, this is rubbish. This is no good. Oh, I'm so tired of this." Ask ourselves the question is, what is going well? What part of your design has actually functioned well so far? And let's celebrate our successes, and let's understand that we're going to build on the things which are truly functional. And then we can look at, the black hat. We can look more negatively. Okay, so what part of this is not going so well? What is challenging? What's difficult? What is not fulfilling the intended function? And then the third question is, okay, so what do I need to know to make those changes? What changes do I need to make to address the limitations of the design? Do I need more information? Maybe I need more knowledge, more resource, or different types of plants, or try and get to the bottom. Test the outcomes of your project from against those original objectives. So again, keep going back to the beginning and say, why were we doing this? What was it that our client group said they wanted? Does our client group still have those same needs? Maybe they've changed. We might have designed this garden for children, and actually now those children have grown up, and the conditions may have changed. So we are constantly evaluating and tweaking our design to modify it and allow it to evolve and be shaped by those who are interacting with it. So there we go. Sadimet. An approach to thinking about design which allows us to come together as a group and discuss each element of it step by step, so that hopefully it's an inclusive process that involves as many people as possible. So we've got a design that fulfills the intended functions and has made all of the different stakeholders of the members of the client group feel that they've been listened to and that their needs have been addressed. Okay, great. I would welcome any thoughts or comments from the floor. Simon, welcome, my friend. Lovely to see you here.
Yes, nice to meet you people once more. I just want to say hi to everybody there who has been in position to attend the session. Though I've joined you late, but I'm glad to meet you members. It is really so wonderful that we are trying to see how we can create a good impact to the locals of our countries to benefit from permaculture. Yeah, well, I got you when you were talking of the implementation and maintenance, where one would say that it is really necessary for it to begin from where you are. It begins from where you are and what do you have. And in the process of having that thing, it will help you and it will help others with the available small resources that we have. Irrespective from where you are, but the virtue of the fact is that you are to start from what you have, with what you have, such that it goes and helps those others when they see what you are doing exactly. Based on my side, what I can say is, it is really so nice that if all people could accept and adopt the principles of permaculture, we would fight all the poverty and the food security at our homes. And that will create a good impact. So, to me, with what we started with, it has really created the impact to the locals of our communities, and they are coping it up. But the other challenging part of the factor is when resources reach to the time of dry season, there is some scarcity of water where one would need to opt to go in for irrigation system. But again, now when we look at that irrigation system, it's a bit expensive to a local person down here who is just a beginner in permaculture. But we pray that if God and each and every plan that we will implement, still again need to create more sensitization on the irrigation production will be at the standstill for all seasons. So members, I'm really glad to meet all of you. I'm seeing this of I can't tell that person who she is, but nice to meet you, you members. Nice to meet you. I believe that I will come back again to add more.
Thank you, Simon, and a really, really, really important point that you made to start from where you are with what you have. That's just, you know, and if you and when you're doing that, other people then can look at you and go, "Oh, there's nothing to stop me from doing the same thing." So that's great, really, really good point. Christy, welcome, and you have your hand up. So.
Thank you. Yeah, I just want to introduce myself and say thank you. I've been following you, Stephen Jones, since my friend Tabendeki Ali had contacted me back, gosh, 2017 when he was in your course and Section 39. And I just recently got added to TAPA on WhatsApp, and I'm a permaculture educator here in the Florida area, and I've been on the planning committee for the permaculture convergence here in Florida for a decade now, and I love permaculture. I love talking about it. I love sharing it, and I see that you do that too. And I'm so thankful for this media to be able to share it with. I have many permaculture friends in Africa now, thanks to Tebendeki Ali and this opportunity. And I raised my hand to direct a comment to Simon, who was just speaking in regards to the droughts and what we use in Florida, because we have sand. And in Florida, the water just drains off so fast that what I found is very useful in holding water for a very long time is hugelkulture. The process of laying down logs and putting our soil and plants planted in the soil on logs, because logs, dead tree branches and logs hold water so long, and they allow the roots to get into their cells so easily and drink the water that's held. If you look at a tree, it is a water holding straw, so to speak. And when it's laid on the ground, it holds that water still. And it's an excellent resource to hold water through droughts. And I just wanted to put that in for you, Simon, that is a process that we can use during those drought times that uses those things that are already right there at our hands, available to us, logs. So I just wanted to add that in and introduce myself and say thank you, Steve Jones, for what you do.
Thank you, Christy. A really, really good point as well. So thank you. I saw Laura had her hand up, but she put it down, and Gerald has his hand up. So we'll go to Gerald next. And thank you so much, Christy.
Hi, Steve. Hi, everyone. It's always brilliant, being here is a refresher. And for me personally, everything somehow relates to somewhere. For instance, when we are talking about the submit process as a whole, we've seen this at work. We've really seen it at the very basic. And probably for the members here, let me encourage us to think of this not, let's say, academically or even as a complex approach, but position it or simplify it as basic as possible. Look at the materials. Don't look at a system as, yes, it's a combination of several elements, but we know that even those elements broken down could be a system forming a part of the bigger system. So if we can break it down, look at it holistically, simplify it, and then look to build on that, small and slow solutions gradually, that reduces even the efforts and amount of resources we are looking at. Then if we are to go deeper, when we were doing the refugee project in the north, a lot of things came up that really, really hit some of us, awakened some of us. We really saw people looking at resources beyond what we were thinking. We had people utilizing rocks around them. We had people utilizing sticks. We had people utilizing broken or leftover pieces of bricks that were being used to construct simple. But at the end of the day, it's all coming to probably fulfilling a specific function. And time comes and it's not so much about the materials used, but what is the function really being fulfilled. Then also one thing that probably I picked up so much, indigenous knowledge. This, as people here or any permaculture practitioner or trainers, please, this is one massive piece of resource that we can take with us. And especially if we are doing anything to do with designing, however little the design could be, especially if you're going into new places or new areas, please, in your survey, put a lot of emphasis on this. One, it will save us a lot, or it would save you a lot. And then two, you're gaining a very important, let's say, piece of information or skill, which is actually free. There's been a case, I've been trying to follow up some news here in the UK, and apparently there is a housing developer who, for the developer, probably they knew that ages back, there used to be, I think it was a coal mine close to a place where they had put up this housing development and everything. But hundreds of years down the road, there were still bits of leaks into the properties. So lots and lots of people have lost their house values, have gone down. The banks are not willing to fund the mortgages or even the insurance companies to insure. but then it goes back that probably, yes, the developer could have known, but the person purchasing or the people who are buying maybe didn't go so much into looking at that history or trying to utilize whichever indigenous knowledge was available. For those of us in the ages where the gadgets were less and less, probably we used to see bits of storytelling, sitting around the fireplaces and listening to stories, part of which was a way of transferring that knowledge and then seeing that it's preserved throughout. But unfortunately, things are changing. So, I always say probably I could talk till the cows come back from feeding, but yeah, it's always good, and please, a lot to learn. Thank you. Thanks, Steve. Thanks, everyone.
Thank you, Gerard. Always good observations that you make. And yeah, focusing on that history, local knowledge, local abilities and skills. And when we say talk to the neighbours, it means whoever they might be, and there could be many reasons for that. So that's great. Laura, please, we look forward to hearing from you.
Good evening, everyone. My name is Laura Wong, a climate justice activist from Uganda. As we've gathered today to discuss about strategy, there is a lot that I have picked out. For example, when it comes to strategy, we are laying a foundation on how to do something that benefits a community. Well, creating a better society involves a collective effort from everyone. So that is to everyone that is here. And permaculture is some or one of the most sustainable practices that are useful to humanity. Its direct approach that solves or addresses food insecurity is actually what stands out for me. I believe that if we continually engage and work together, we can have a major and positive impact towards our different communities that each one of us comes from. Well, Steve spoke of having or holding intergenerational dialogues to be able to know what is actually happening on ground, and I definitely agree with that. We also need to be well informed in order to work well. Well, majorly, my heart speaks for the, and I believe when it comes to laying strategy for the work we need, to help them understand why they should be a part of this, how best that the youth can actually be, how they can actually involve in what we are doing. I feel like a part of the strategy, we need to help them understand that if they are a part of this profound impact, they can actually be able to build confidence and self-esteem through hands-on achievements, because permaculture is an activity where we have our hands on the work. They can also be able to develop problem-solving and critical thinking skills as a youth. Then also when it comes to permaculture, it can help a youth to foster creativity and innovation, because as we think and relay strategies, everyone is thinking and developing an idea, and this is something that can be useful to the youth. Also, encouraging environmental stewardship and social responsibility, like I, for one, myself here in Uganda. Then also providing opportunities for networking and collaboration, because today I've been able to hear and understand and listen to different people from all over the world and all over the continent, Africa. And I believe that if we empower the youth to take on leadership roles in permaculture initiatives, we can create a more sustainable, equitable, and resilient future for all. Lastly, I want to appreciate Steve and the entire Sector 39 for this engagement and wonderful involvement. Thank you.
Thank you, Laura. You have a talent for just putting your finger on the pulse, as ever. Youth empowerment for leadership within permaculture. This is exactly what we want to see. When we say we start small and we're allowed to make mistakes, this is how we learn. And every youth should feel empowered to, you know, what's the worst going to happen? Plant a tree, start a compost heap, link with your community. There's many ways we can begin these things. So thank you very much for your thoughts. And I'm wondering if Godfrey, are you tuned in now? Godfrey, we'd love to hear from you. Don't forget to unmute your microphone.
Are you getting me now?
Yeah.
Okay. First of all, I'm so delighted once more. This is my second time to attend this topics and this session. I would love to thank all the participants. I also a little bit came in a bit late, but I'm delightful. Gerard, I'm happy to see you because you have changed greatly. I don't know where you took your hair, but so I hope everything is well there. For the sake of maybe the people who don't know me, I'm called Godfrey, and I was also part of the team in 2017 that was enthusiastically engaged in the PDC. That time it was in Kamuli, Malamu Center, with Gerard were there and Ali Tebandeke. And I want to say that I have not remained the same since I got the knowledge for permaculture. I remember I was working by then with an international non-profit making organization, which did not have any element of maybe permaculture in it, in one of its the activities. So remember, I was connected to Steve Jones through one of my colleagues, was Joseph, who was also attended the PDC before that. And I was so delighted how Steve really was deliberating. And I remember when I came back there, permaculture, when you engage in permaculture, you feel as if you have wasted years. And when I came back from there, immediately I had to round out all the students whom I recommended to come. By then, some of them were teachers, some of them were youth, and I told them, members, we really need, and here in Kumi, we are really in Eastern Uganda, we are in a semi-desert area. It is so dry to the extent that sometimes you feel like you don't want to sleep in the houses around. You just have to sit outside and to feel that's the impact of climate change on the social aspect. People feel like even sleeping in the house with your housemate, you feel like you're not being next to each other because of the heat. Nowadays, it is no longer global warming. It is global heating. My friend who's in Uganda, I believe you know what I'm talking about. It is so hot that to the extent you don't feel like staying in the houses and maybe do other activities. However, in 2020, I remember when we started, it was a COVID era, and our first PDC, which I thank Steve through your connection to the funders who gave us that fund. Right now, we are grateful for the new team, for the resilience and the enthusiastic team of the youth in Ngora. We are having more than a number of groups. So that was our brain children, and we really so grateful for that. They formed community-based groups, TAPA, TESO, that was TESO Permaculture Association among the youth, that is in Ngora. And they are doing grateful things. They always post what they are doing. Personally, I am trying to engage the local district and the municipality officials. Today, I went to the office of the environmental officer, and I shared a lot with her about the current situation in Kumi. Steve, you agree with me? You have ever been to Kumi? You can't see any tree down in the street, and yet right now the road works are going on. And I was challenging the environmental officer. I was asking him, what is the plan for this? Just like I got you came in and you're like, you have to engage a lot of people before you come up with a design. you engage the local, they have the local knowledge than you is a first outside facilitator. So I engaged them, and I feel that if this goes well, we wanted to have a system of composting and maybe of tree planting in the municipality right now, such that there is we try to solve, as my sister shared, that when permaculture gives you knowledge, you have to, you don't look at yourself, you feel like this has to change, and how to change is by working together with the local and finding a solution, not only having knowledge and impact on them. However, I'm so grateful to Steve and to everybody, and I believe I came in a little bit, but I really love to be part of these sessions each and every time. I love you, Steve, and I love everybody. May God bless you.
Thank you so much, Godfrey. You're very generous and very thoughtful comments as well. It's really wonderful. Sister Stella, are you there? We would love to hear from you. Would you like to join us to speak with us? Stella?
Yes, please. Good evening, everyone. Thank you so much for the session. Much as I came a bit late, I was caught up with some classwork. Ideally, I got you, Gerald, talking about local knowledge. Yes, as we always do response to any, I speak now in terms of disaster management, which is permaculture purely. When we do any response, local knowledge is really very vital. For example, we had a scenario in Kasese where someone went to measure the level of river flooding, and they went and put their own marks on the tree without consulting the villagers, the local community. So when the river overlapped, it went away with that mark. So they laughed at this gentleman quietly. The next time the team went there, someone went and asked, where does this water reach whenever it floods? So the local community told this man, we thank you so much for coming to ask us about this, because in most cases, people come here, they drive their cars, put their marks and disappear. So what am I emphasizing? I am saying, yes, local knowledge is something very important. They know how they have been doing these things. Us going with new things will never help. Meaning, the traditional things that permaculture is bringing back, we have been doing these things before, but we tried to run away from them because of technology. We have seen huge machines coming all over. We think that is better. We see seeds, they call them what? Improved seeds coming all over. And yet we have our local seeds that are resistant to these climatic change issues and so on. So let's go back and do things the way it used to be. Can we get back to our cultures? Thank you so much, Laura, for bringing up the idea of leadership. Leadership is something very, very vital. I remember when I went to Ngora to check on those of Simon, I was impressed. The way this team is doing their work is so unique. Much as they have TAPA as a big association, but in each village, they have the chairperson up to the lowest person, you know, in the committee. And all these people are doing their work, but they have mutual respect for each and everyone. So when we are doing this work, we need respect for each other as well, so that we are able to transfer knowledge from one person to the other. Respecting people's opinions is something very good. It might look not really right from your side, but when you give time to ask yourself, why did this person say this? It gives you the answer, and definitely you will get to the next step. So I'm really so grateful for the session today. Looking forward to hearing more. Thank you.
Thank you, Stella. You always speak so clearly. It's fantastic. Shanaz, would you like to go? And then Clovis is just trying to connect. So
I just wanted to say thank you so much, Steve. As ever, I find your, I can listen to you for hours. You consistently inspire. And I just want to thank you for your dedication, your commitment, as I said in my little message on the chat. I just also wanted to say I just had a message from Pixie in West Bengal, who's trying to join us, and she was very late and she couldn't get on. And I've told her that we'll send her the recording and for her to send to Paramita as well. As ever, wonderful to hear Simon. Thank you for reminding us about starting where we are, which is exactly what I did after I did my first course with Stephen. And to Laura, of course, who's left, I think, but consistently, she speaks so eloquently and she seems to just have all the salient features. Lovely to meet Christy from Florida. And of course, Simon, I said already, and Stella, of course. Stella, yes, Stella, we're fighting for you, Stella, here to get your master's through. And everybody else who's been here, thank you, Steve. Thank you for making it possible.
Thank you.
You're really welcome. And we just, are you there, Clovis? Would you like to say a quick final word? We have about a couple of minutes because I've got another meeting. So happy to have you here, Clovis. I've seen him dropping in and out, so he may not quite be able to reach us. Clovis, I'll just speak for him, has just completed his degree, and which is fantastic because he's a refugee from Congo. So to come to a different country and another language to get a degree in environmental science and soil and I forget if I misrepresent you, but a really, really great achievement. And we hope to continue working together. Clovis is also a permaculture trainer and has a lot of experience and has worked in the field with us previously. So I'm going to draw it together now because I have another meeting to prepare for. And lovely to meet everyone. And I think this is session 4 of 6. So there will be at least 2 more, and then we'll have an evaluation and decide what we want to do next. So thank you, everybody. Lovely to see you. And see you next time.
Thank you.
Bye-bye.
Greetings actually from Congo. He's having a session right now.
Yeah, okay.
Thank you.